facts, and fake news doesn't exist, unless I call it fake news. Anyway, thank you for watching. We want to get right to Vigano, Eternal Vigano Television Network. Vigano talks about liturgical reforms. And I want to read just a few quotes from him. He says, I do not agree with the coexistence of two forms of the same rite in the Church of the Roman Rite. I consider the Reformed rite to be gravely lacking and certainly favors Haerism, Haeresim, joining myself to the denunciation of Cardinals Ottaviani and Bacchi, as well as that of Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre. I am convinced that the Novus Order should simply be abolished and prohibited, and the traditional rite should be declared the only Roman rite in force. Wow. Good stuff. I conclude with an observation. Many communities that make use of the Motu Proprius Amorum Pontificum celebrate the rites of the Holy Week following the Missal prior to the reform of Pius XII. The Ecclesia Dei Commission itself authorizes dispensation, considering the reasons given by those who asked for it to be legitimate. Therefore, I do not see why the fraternity, which has been the FSSP, which has been at the forefront of guarding the traditional Mass in much more difficult times, cannot do the same. Certainly when the Church refines herself, all of this will have to be brought back into the riverbed of the law, a law that we may hope will wisely take into account the criticisms that have been raised. So he makes a few interesting points here. He talks about the Holy Week, 55, the changes of pre-55 Holy Week. And he supports pre-55, and so he's confused why any of these organizations want to use the 62 Missal, and he has legitimate concerns here. Also, he mentions that he joins himself to the denunciation of Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre. So, I don't know, has Vigano considered going SSPX? I don't know. I guess we'll see. Just an interesting question. I don't know if he actually will, but who really knows? From the Synod on Synodality's website, I'm going to read a quote here. The story we are sharing is actually three stories. Testimonies that the Synod leader of Immaculate Conception Parish in Hendersonville, North Carolina, USA, collected during Synod conversations with LMNOP couples in presence and online. That's right. The Synod on Synodality website is promoting LMNOP couples. Not only are they promoting LMNOP couples, they are calling them pro-life. Pope Francis could probably request this to be taken down. Anyway, the following is one of the most moving stories from the conversations in the presence. It was told by a parishioner who introduced the story as a true pro-life story. And I'm not going to read it to you. It was an LMNOP adoption story. Is that pro-life? Really? A sin that cries out to heaven for vengeance? One that is disordered? I'd say that's against the Catholic faith. Anyway, there is a story that I will read a clip from. It's called The Story of a Sexuality That Gives Life. And you can listen to how disgusting this is. A participant from the diocese told the story of an LMNOP couple who came to the Diocese of Charlotte, North Carolina, but were offended by members of the Catholic Church they attended. Josh and Nick moved to Canada, where they married and were together for more than 15 years. They wanted their sexuality to be truly life-giving, encouraging and adopting local teenagers with mental disabilities to give them a chance at a better life, a home, an education, and two loving parents. Since Josh is a counselor for teens with disorders, this was the perfect choice, allowing them to move forward in God's call to help the population of mentally challenged teens in the area to better adapt and succeed at life. Okay, Josh is a counselor for teens with disorders when he himself has a disorder. This is absolutely disgusting. They wanted their sexuality to be truly life-giving. Well, one would have to be a man and one would have to be a woman, biologically, not identifying as that. And this is a complete distortion of reality. And again, sodomy is a sin that cries out to heaven for vengeance. But the Synod on Synodality website is promoting it. There you go. Rome will lose the faith. All right, have you heard about the vandalism at Houston churches? There was a story, not a story, but the news article. It said when someone arrived at the church for an 8 a.m. meeting Monday morning, they saw a message saying pro-life or pro-choice is pro-life painted on the main entrance to the church and a side door at Holy Rosary Catholic Church in Houston. At nearby St. Bartholomew, they tried to remove the tabernacle, which contains the sacred presence of Christ in the Eucharist. The other church, someone tried to desecrate the Eucharist, and I think a tabernacle was stolen, actually, and it was thrown. I think it was like gold-plated, but they didn't want it for the metal. I don't know if it contained gold or not, but they didn't want it for the metal. They wanted it for the Eucharist, so they stole it out of the tabernacle. Definitely a Satanist. And Taylor Marshall had a good video about defending your churches. And that's I can't say a whole lot more about that. If you're interested, watch the video, because we need to defend our churches and at least keep an eye out on what's going on. All right, so Cardinal Zen was in the news recently. I released a video about him, and he will. I did see online that he will be facing his. Is it a trial next week? I think he will be on trial next week, but I don't know how that's going to turn out. He could face jail time. But let's do a little flashback. Do a kind of a little feature here. Cardinal Zen visited the Vatican in 2020. He said, at this point in 2020, I do not believe I will return again. My legs do not work so well now for these long trips. As I did last year, I handed a letter to a secretary at Casa Santa Marta, hoping to see the Holy Father. I let him know how urgent it was and how I was here only for a short time. He explained his anxiety that a bishop who is trusted by the people be installed as soon as possible, as the faithful in both Hong Kong and China grow increasingly wary of what is being seen as political posturing by the Vatican. Cardinal Zen said, the Holy See has done 3 things to kill our church, and this resonates right now, so this is why I'm talking about this a few years later. He said the Holy See has done 3 things to kill our church. The first is this secret document, this secret deal with Beijing. Because it is secret, the government can use it to demand from the people anything in the name of the Pope. Okay, and we've seen that. The second horrible act was to legitimize the 7 schismatic bishops. He calls them schismatic bishops, and Rome legitimized them. There you go. He referenced the lifting of excommunications and recognitions of 7 bishops created by the Chinese Communist state within the state-established Chinese Patriotic Catholic Association. The third and even more terrible is this document for registration. To sign a document joining the independent church, that's apostasy. I raised my voice, I wrote a letter to the Pope and then to all the cardinals of the world, and nothing happened. This is incredible. Wow. My last act of protest will be to do just that, to now disappear with everyone knowing why. I put this in my last will and testament, that my bones shall not be placed in the cathedral. I do not want to be buried with such men. I will be buried in a simple cemetery with what remains of the faithful people of God. And he said this, and 2 years later he's facing jail time. He will never be able to speak to the public again, as far as I expect. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the Iron Curtain in China will fall, whatever, I don't know. Is that what you call communism? Unlikely, because communism is actually increasing, not decreasing. So now, the Patriotic Diocese of Hong Kong is concerned about Cardinal Zen's arrest. They released a statement. It said that's not true. The Catholic Diocese of Hong Kong is extremely concerned about the condition of safety of Cardinal Joseph Zen, and we are offering our special prayers to him. We have always upheld the rule of law. We trust that in the future we will continue enjoying religious freedom in Hong Kong under the Basic Law. Oh. We urge the Hong Kong police and the judicial authorities to handle Cardinal Zen's case in accordance with justice, taking into consideration our concrete human situation. As Christians, it is our firm belief that the Lord is my shepherd, there is nothing I lack. Wait. So did they support Cardinal Zen? Or are they just saying, well, we're going to release an ambiguous statement and you interpret it how you want? They don't give a crap. It's not the Catholic Diocese of Hong Kong, it's a patriotic Diocese of Hong Kong. Because if they were Catholic, then they would be demanding for his release and denouncing communism. But they won't do that. Because their bishop is a communist. In every sense of the word. Alright, let's move on to this Eucharistic Revival. And I have a lot of problems with this. So remember how, I think it was last week's EVTN, I talked about these Eucharistic Revival priests, these Eucharistic celebrity, or what is it? Is that what I call them? The Eucharistic celebrity priests that are going to lead this Eucharistic renewal in the United States. And while it's a good initiative to bring the Eucharist to the center of the Catholic faith, I mean, yeah, that's a good thing, right? I'm going to read you some clips here, and you tell me what you think. An April retreat on Chicago's west side that included prayer and adoration, mass, bishop's presentation, and service to the poor energized Father Raphael Capo, who with about 50 other priests will soon be preaching around the country this summer as part of the National Eucharistic Revival. Gathering with the priests for the retreat in the Mission of Angels, at the Mission of Angels were Cardinal Blaise Cupich of Chicago and Bishop Andrew Cozzens of Crookston, Michigan. Okay, so I'm going to stop there really quick. And did any of those names make you very concerned? Is Cardinal Cupich in charge of this retreat for these Eucharistic celebrity priests? That's really concerning, because Cardinal Cupich is completely rotten. No question. So that's very disappointing. Retreatants also spent time serving in the neighborhood of the Mission of Angels, which is run by the Franciscan Sisters of the Eucharist. The priests talked with residents, helped them get groceries, and assisted in other ways. The connection retreatants had between Eucharistic prayer and mission is a theme that will likely be highlighted in their own preaching on the subject. So wait, what are we talking about? Are we talking about good works? Or are we talking about the Eucharist? Are we trying to blur the subject? Are we trying to implement Cardinal Bernardine's seamless garment? Because you're in Chicago, and so you're doing this social justice activism. You're helping the poor, which is fine, which is good. But that doesn't, what does that have to do with the Eucharist? Like, what does that have to do with the real presence in the Eucharist? Belief in the Eucharist? Where's the Eucharistic adoration? Where's communion, kneeling, and on the tongue? Where's the statement about sacrilege, sacrilegious communions? It doesn't exist. This is the problem. These Eucharistic celebrity priests are going to go and they're going to preach about service. They're not going to preach about the Eucharist. So how are you going to have a Eucharistic renewal if you're not going to talk about the Eucharist? You're instead going to distort it and combine it with this activism. Because if you look at it, think about this. If you're planting a tree or you're buying groceries, helping residents get groceries and talk to these residents, how's that any different than an atheist? Atheists can get groceries for old people. They don't have the Eucharist. That's the difference. So how is this going to be a success if Cardinal Supich is in charge of it and you're doing the social justice stuff and you're watering down your mission? All right. What you could consider is having an Aztec blessing, right? The Diocese of Gary, I think this is Indiana, has said that a press release regarding the opening of a new exhibit at a Catholic shrine in Indiana featuring the traditional Aztec dance performances intended to bless the plaza, according to shrine administrators, is misleading and that no such Aztec blessing will take place. Now, this is at a new Guadalupe shrine. And why does Our Lady of Guadalupe events or shrines or anything, why does it always involve indigenous native dances in churches or around these shrines or churches? Why does it always involve native dancers? I guess you could do like a performance or of some sort where the natives are converted by Our Lady and they remove their pagan clothing, their heathen they change their heathen clothing into respectable Catholic attire for Mass, but I don't get it. Bishop Robert Mcclory of the Diocese of Gary, Indiana, is slated to preside over the grand opening ceremony, which will take place on May 22nd at the Shrine of Christ's Passion in St. John, Indiana. The prelate is to be accompanied by Father Sammy Maletta, the parish priest of the neighboring St. John Parish Church, and an Opus Dei priest, Father Francis Rocky Hoffman, Executive Director of Relevant Radio. An Opus Dei priest at a pagan Aztec dance. I don't know. It's not pagan though. The diocese said so. Okay. Here's some controversy. More than 70 pro-life leaders, including Archbishop William Lori, who leads the U.S. Bishops' Pro-Life Committee, are demanding that state lawmakers refuse to punish or criminalize women who obtain abortions, as national and state pro-life organizations representing tens of millions of pro-life men, women, and children across the country. Let's be clear. This was the statement. We state unequivocally that any measure seeking to criminalize or punish women is not pro-life. We stand firmly opposed to such efforts. Really? So whose decision was it to kill their baby? And you're not going to hold them accountable for it? Maybe not going back. I don't know that I would necessarily say you have to go back and prosecute these people, these women who obtain abortions. But when it's illegal, who's the responsible party? If they make the decision to kill their baby, how are they not liable for it? I don't get it. That's not pro-life. That's ridiculous. Say, oh, we're pro-life, but a woman who kills her baby, okay, that's fine. Yeah. Just really caved to the modern culture. All right, we're going to talk about Word on Fire. Now, I didn't talk about this story because the person who initially shared it on Twitter is a modernist who supports the LMNOPs, and I really don't trust much of anything that they have to say. If they support LMNOP, it's really hard for me to trust them with any kind of accuracy or facts. And there was an employee, I think it was Joseph Glore, is that his name? Who Word on Fire eventually ended up firing after complaints of like sexual harassment. And Word on Fire seemed to take his side. Now, this is from The Pillar, two prominent Catholic writers and speakers have resigned from Word on Fire Media. They call it an apostolate, adding to recent changes that calls for a reform of communications and organizational culture that have gone unheard. An investigation into sexual misconduct on the part of a former employee was mishandled. If you want to read more on it, you can read in the link below. I don't really have a strong opinion here. I mean, it's not a good look for Bishop Barron, but I mean, it's hard to. It seems like he didn't know the person who accused the employee of harassment, and then he knew the employee, and so he took the employee's story, and but then he was kind of pressured into firing him because it kind of got worse, and it seems like Bishop Barron really kind of in this situation did the right thing. I mean, I'm not a fan of Bishop Barron at all, but the way the modernists on Twitter are reacting is unbelievable. Now anyway, these two prominent Catholic writers, it's Jackie and Bobby Angel. They were I think they're on Ascension Presents. That's Father Mike Schmitz's YouTube channel, and it's a huge, big time Catholic channel, like millions of views, and I'm not sure hundreds of thousands of subscribers. But now, okay, Jackie and Bobby Angel wrote, We believe in the mission and principles of Word on Fire, but not at all costs and definitely not at the expense of our mental health. All right, so this is kind of for them trying to just like save face, I guess. And this is the state of Novus Ordo Catholicism. I'm just going to be, quite frank here. They said they believe in the mission and principles of Word on Fire. I personally do not, because there's not a reasonable hope that all are saved. And becoming, I think they call them Word on Fire fellows. I would decline that because I don't believe in what the Word on Fire believes. And Bishop Barron has criticized the insulted traditionalists numerous times, and this is an example of professional Catholics kind of linking to Word on Fire, and then when it's not convenient for them anymore, they just release a statement and say, "Oh, wash my hands of this." All right. Well, I wish that there were more people speaking out against Word on Fire's theological problems. I'll just say that, because this is this is kind of this is kind of a situation where, okay, yeah, it's I don't know. Did they link to the Word on Fire so that they could advance their careers? I don't know. Let's see here. They were okay. So they were appointed fellows of the Word on Fire Institute, a branch of Word on Fire in early 2020. The resignation came. Okay, so here's describing a little bit more of the situation. The resignation came after public controversy over Word on Fire's handling of an investigation into the alleged sexual assault. Okay, it wasn't just sexual harassment. All right. On the part of former senior producer Joseph Glore, who was fired in October 2021. It was a quiet firing. They scrubbed his name from the website and just kind of left it. And someone, brought this story into the public. Employees and former employees have charged that Word on Fire inappropriately identified an alleged victim of sexual assault did not provide sufficient communication to employees about an investigation surrounding the incident, and that Word on Fire leaders favored Glore during the probe into his conduct, only eventually firing him only as a public relations measure. Yeah, so I mean the I don't know. Like I said, this is really just, to me, I don't believe the modernists. So it's hard for me to believe anyone in this situation. I don't really know. It's hard for me to let's say I'm not in an appropriate position to make a judgment. We'll just say that. What did Word on Fire know before they fired him? What did they know as they were taking his side of the story? What did they know? I don't know. All right, so Bishop Georg Batzing of Limburg responded to Archbishop Samuel Aquila of Denver. Remember, Archbishop Aquila, he strongly criticized Bishop Batzing in the German synodal way. Bishop Batzing said, our church needs change in order to faithfully carry out her mission and take the precious gospel of Jesus Christ to the people of our time. And the urgent need for change also includes the need to further develop the church's teaching, such as my conviction. Okay, so this guy is essentially an apostate. The church needs to change. Okay, the church needs to change. Basically, he more or less says the church needs to change doctrine. There are others who have said similar things, and I pointed out from time to time. Cardinal Tobin said the church needs to change the catechism in regards to LMNOP being disordered. And this is a very straightforward response. And if we had a Catholic Pope, he would declare Bishop Batzing a heretic, excommunicate him, do something. And we can pray for a Catholic Pope, whether Pope Francis converts or if we get a new Pope, and we can do these things and bring our church back to the Catholic, bring not the church, but bring some of the bishops and the cardinals back to the Catholic faith, or replace them with someone who is Catholic. Latin Mass altar boys wrote a letter to Cardinal Gregory. I believe it was 6 altar boys from St. Mary Mother of God Parish in Washington, D.C. said that if the Latin Mass were no longer allowed at St. Mary's, it would feel like losing something precious, something of ourselves. They said for us the Latin Mass is a refuge. The altar boys wrote that they wish to partake in the mystery of the Eucharist through the Latin Mass, and added that hopefully one or more of us will be called to serve our Lord as a priest. The altar boys remain unnamed, and the letter is signed simply as St. Mary's Altar Boys. They also wrote that they drive an hour to get to the church to serve Mass. Is that where we're backed into a corner, right? They're making us drive pretty far to find our closest traditional Mass. And for those of us who belong to the old rite, because aren't they now separate rites? The new rite and the old rite? Aren't they separate rites? I think Pope Francis declared that. It's hard to find an old rite parish, and it's really hard to find bishops who are willing to offer these old rite liturgies, or at least make them available to the faithful, despite the fact that most of your vocations are coming from traditional parishes. Most of your Catholic faithful are attending. That's not true. But the people that went Catholicism, many of them are seeking out the Latin Mass. And they're even driving an hour or more to get to the Latin Mass. And so Cardinal Gregory is considering shutting down this parish. And I haven't looked, but is there an SSPX parish in Washington? Because I would think that they would be gaining more and more parishioners as the days go on, or as the restrictions continue to pile up. See, the problem is, especially with something like old rite baptism, old rite baptism has 3 exorcisms. New rite baptism does not. And people want the sacraments for their children. Not only just baptism, but also confirmation. And then if you, like a Latin Mass, like a Latin wedding, a Latin Mass wedding, what is your bishop going to approve that? Is he going to approve your wedding Mass to be in Latin? In the old rite, not just Latin, because you can say Latin Novus Ordo, yeah. Some of the bishops think they can restrict that too. I mean, talk about clericalism. Bishops were trying to restrict a rite of the church. Unbelievable. All right, so that's all I have today, and I want to thank everyone today for watching EVTN. We're bringing you the news, the Catholic news, and it is presented in an extreme. I'm extremely unbiased. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. This has been EVTN News. We are the laity, and we will not be silent.